It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher.
My personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Yeah, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It drops tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., but you can get content all week long inside the draft with Greg Cosell, Q&A. Of course, the Inside the Birds podcast Mondays and Thursdays, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. This is Football at 4. We talk NFL, we talk Eagles, we got draft, we've got it all right now. Geoff Mosher is with me here. We got a lot of questions for Moshe from our listeners that are already coming in that we will ask him throughout the day. But obviously, a lot of people are talking about the press conference today. Howie Roseman, Andy Weidel, and Nick Sirianni, who, I mean, really took over the press conference. I mean, he sat there for about 10 minutes, Jeff. He didn't say anything and then decided, you know what? It's my time. It's my time. I'm taking over this thing. I don't know. Some people thought it was bad. Some people enjoyed it. I don't know what to think, but I got a lot of clues and some interesting stuff from it. How did you take it?
I think it's becoming pretty clear that Nick Sirianni press conferences are must-see TV, right? I mean, I totally agree with you that you almost felt him as he was sitting there, just like, man, when's someone going to ask me a question? And even before he went into the rock, paper, scissors stuff that has everybody into a buzz, I mean, you got the hands flying everywhere. He smacked his microphone saying boom like John Madden. I feel like this guy he needs to get on a football field and coach. I'm sure he's wired that way. I don't think he's handling the this new pandemic, restricted offseason very well.
Oh, the part where somebody asks a question and he says, well, let me jump in here. I get ready for a game Saturday through Tuesday or whatever, and, this is what these guys are going through right now, except it's just longer, and they get to see what I do, and now I get to see what they do. I mean, this guy was so excited about the opportunity to it almost felt like, Jeff, when you get hired at a place and that first week or two, you're feeling yourself around. Now he feels comfortable in his surroundings, and you're like, oh, this is Nick Sirianni. Like, he definitely seems like he feels more comfortable with the guys around him.
Yeah, I mean, if Nick Sirianni had any feedback from his first few press conferences, right, that was either the fans don't love this or a little sheepish about you, like, he certainly didn't care, right? I mean, he just kind of doubled down on who he is, and that's great, having that kind of confidence in the skin. At the end of the day, Mike, whether with his demeanor, it's all about how it plays in the locker room. It doesn't matter what you or I think. It doesn't matter what the fans think. It's about what the players think. I sense, and I'll give you a little more context in a minute, I sense that when things are going well and the team's winning, that's a great attitude. What he's got is a great attitude for people to bring people together. What I do wonder about, and I'm not saying he doesn't have it, what I naturally wonder is how he talks to his team after one of those tough losses, a divisional loss to the Cowboys, right? Does he have a different tone that kind of resonates with the locker room? Because I will say, about 10 minutes after his press conference or the whole conference, I got a couple of text messages from former players, some who I haven't spoken to in a couple of weeks or quite a while. And their texts to me were kind of what you'd expect a little bit from the other side. Like kind of like, one was an emoji of a guy going like, hitting himself in the forehead. Another is what's going on here. So I can tell you that, I think that players whose opinions matter more than anybody else, they're looking at it and wondering the same thing that we're all wondering. How is that going to work when you're talking about adult men after a tough loss? And that's for Nick Sirianni and his staff to find out. We're not going to answer that question now. But I don't think it's all. Listen, there were a lot of things said at that press conference that we'll talk about that I thought were way more important and pertinent, and even alarming in some ways than Nick Sirianni talking about the rock, paper, and scissor contest with draft prospects.
Yeah, I mean, the rock, paper, scissors, I took it as he was trying to just show a playful side of, hey, we can't get guys in the building but we want to show a competitive atmosphere, so much so that I'm doing rock, paper, scissors on Zoom. And he might have been serious about it, but that's why I think the Hurts stuff that he didn't name, that they didn't come out and say it, I think was getting blown out of proportion as well. I think he's trying to show the rock, paper, scissors is a message of we want competition no matter what. We want competition whether it's rock, paper, scissors, all the way to the starting quarterback. Does that mean that Fletcher Cox has to compete for his job? No. But the message that he wants is that that's the message of the building, that it's so competitive in here that if we're on Zoom, we're going to compete. And if you're the quarterback, you're going to compete.
Yeah. So I have two thoughts on that, and they're a little bit disparate. One is that I think that that's pretty common for a first-year head coach.
Right.
And that's a good philosophy to have. You don't hand over jobs. You don't want to be seen as the pushover or anything like that when you're just getting here, right? So the second thing, though, is we all know, and we just saw with Carson Wentz, you treat quarterbacks a little bit differently. I don't know that I would have just not mentioned his name whatsoever and said nothing about him. I think Jalen Hurts, from some of what I've heard, has looked at what's going on this offseason and wondering why there has been mixed messaging. Why is it that Carson's not here and I'm the only quarterback on the roster, right? But then there's always this hesitance to just say I'm the starting quarterback too. Like, quarterbacks you treat differently. They want to know they're the guy when they are the guy, and they want to be able to then move forward and act like the guy. So I'm not blaming Nick Sirianni for the competition, iron sharpens iron type of mentality. I think that's good. I think getting too extreme to the point where we're not going to say his name in a press conference may not be
fair.
The best approach to it.
Yeah, definitely fair. A couple clues that I took. I want to get your opinion on. One, he talked about taking the call from Miami, and they wanted to find out who they were trading with. And when he saw that it was San Francisco going to 3, he felt, all right, that means 3 quarterbacks are getting taken, and that's why he felt comfortable. Does that say to you that two things? One, it told me I don't think they want a quarterback. So that tells me that they're okay with Hurts. I think that's the message there without saying his name is, we didn't want a quarterback anyway. If you move up, it's because you're taking a quarterback. So we'll move back, which means they feel pretty comfortable with the guy they get at 12 because they were willing to move back because they knew that 3 quarterbacks were going to go.
Right. Comfortable in that they're also getting a future first-round pick, right? And not, yes.
Well, the optionality.
So I agree with you.
Flexibility.
They're out of
yeah.
Right. The message is they're out of the first-round quarterback business. I don't know that means that it's a true devotion to Jalen Hurts. I mean, you have to see what happens here around the league. I mean, there's still some quarterbacks who might become available. We've heard Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, other names out there. So nothing's really cemented to me in my mind by him saying that, other than they're going with Jalen Hurts instead of a first-round quarterback.
Correct.
Right.
Right. That's what I took. But also that means 9 guys are going to be there that they feel
comfortable with. Right.
Yeah, that they're going to be, of those 9, someone will be there at 12 that they like. Now, the other part that I took that I thought was really interesting was, and he talked about Sayamalo. He said that we view him as a starting center and that could play left guard.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of tells me that offensive lineman could be in play here, because when Kelsey leaves, they might see Sayamalo as the center, which means you could get Slater or Ali Vera Tucker as your new left guard.
Yeah, I mean, I've consistently said this with you and on Inside the Birds podcast, is that when the Eagles pick this high in the first round under Howie Roseman and under Andy Reid, traditionally they're taking an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. Now, that doesn't mean they're doing it this year, but you're just talking about being comfortable with the cluster. And in that cluster, there's going to be an offensive lineman, maybe even 2, depending on what happens with Penei Sewell, but certainly Rashawn Slater. There will probably be 2 cornerbacks to choose from. They may be gone, they may not. And there'll be a pass rusher or 2 at that spot as well. And that aligns more with what they historically do when they pick that high than, say, picking a Jamar Chase or a Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, which, I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised more so now listening to that if they were at 12 and moved back again to, say, 15. There's a team at 15 that needs a quarterback, got another second or third round pick, and took that lineman at a spot like 15 or 20. The Bears are at 20 and got more assets because of what he said about the offensive line stuff. I thought, and Andy Weidel mentioned that both Slater and Vera Tucker both didn't want to list them by position, just said flexibility, the ability to play multiple positions, like that adds to your, luster. So I thought that was pretty revealing today.
I tell you, some people think that now you wouldn't draft the kid this high to do it, but that Rashawn Slater could play center in the NFL and be good at it because his arms are a little short. Same thing with Sewell, but Sewell's 330 pounds. Slater's only 305 pounds. So that enables him to play. That just shows you how athletic he is. He can play left tackle, but he can also play guard and maybe center. You wouldn't draft him that high to play center, but perhaps if you were really deep on an offensive line and that was where he best fit in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and you move him there, then you're probably doing pretty well on the O-line.
All right. Early in the presser, this got kind of overshadowed. He was asked about last year's draft board. He didn't poo-poo it, but essentially was asked, hey, did you draft a guy that wasn't who wasn't listed as high on your draft board? And he didn't say no. I thought he kind of said, we're not writing the book on those guys. We're excited about this coaching staff to get their hands on those guys.
Yeah, that stuck it to me. That was that question and answer involving Tim McManus from ESPN.com and Howie was the quote or the back and forth, if you will, of the press conference that nobody's talking about. Because Tim McManus opened that question with a statement, an accusation, really. He said, Howie, it's been well documented that you didn't stay true to your board last year, right? And then he said, I think the question was, has this process been tweaked or is that going to happen again? And 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10 in the past, Howie's going to say, well, what just because you think that, or I mean, he's not one to let a public narrative go without a debate. But he did not. He did not say that's wrong. He didn't even address it. Okay. To me, that was pretty alarming. So, I mean, that's an admission, to which we already have known and we've reported, but that they did not stay true to their board last year in several of their picks, not just any one in particular. And I heard nothing like in the press conference that makes me absolutely positively sure it's not going to happen again. All I heard was we've learned from the process. And then, as you mentioned, what he wound up saying was, the coaches are very much a part of the process, and you want to make sure at the end of the day you get the coaches, you get the players for the coaches. But I'm sorry, you're a general manager of about a decade. If you're favoring one, your job is to execute a brainstorm between all your departments, your coaches, your scouts, your analytics people, anybody else involved. And if you're showing a preference or a lean toward one and not the others, and you make that pick on that, that's still on you. I mean, that's how I see it. You're the general manager. It's your decision. So if you're now throwing the coaches under the bus saying you were picking for them, I'm sorry. I think that's a little bit classless.
Or like, hey, I picked guys. I don't think the coaching staff did a very good job with them. And I'm much more intrigued by what this coaching staff will do with these guys.
That's a good point. Maybe he was blaming talent development, but that still doesn't go to whether or not you stuck to your board or not. That doesn't answer that question. But I find it interesting because someone asked him about Jeffrey Lurie's involvement. It's the same reports, right? About involvement in the draft process. And he's like, no, this is not true. So it's weird that the same reporters who must be true about him not staying true to his board are not accurate about Jeffrey Lurie's involvement in the draft process. It must be the world's greatest coincidence, Mike.
I want to get your take also on Sirianni. I thought gave a great answer to this question about the X receiver. And in fact, if you notice, Moshe, the question was really asked to Roseman. It was Nick and Roseman. But he said, when you're looking for this X receiver, is there something you have in mind when you want to look at it? And Roseman acquiesced to him. You answer that question. No, you're the talent evaluator. But he actually said, it'll make me feel that Sirianni has a voice in there. Hey, what are you looking for with an X receiver? And he basically said, I had a 5'9" X receiver. I had a 6'2" X receiver. I had a guy in the middle. I had a fast guy. I had a quick guy. I had a strong guy. I mean, he really laid out all these different styles and said, there is no model X receiver. It's if the guy's talented enough, I will use him in his talent mold.
Yeah, I thought it was a great answer. I agree with you. And I think what it goes to show is that to play that position in the NFL, does size always matter? Not really. What matters is whether or not you can handle what comes with playing the X position in the NFL, and that's usually press coverage, right? So you can be a small guy, but you might have great hand usage. You may have such elite speed that someone who tries to press you and misses cannot recover. And it sort of felt like they were having a discussion about Devontae Smith there, right? About guys being able to play X at all shapes and sizes. It almost felt like that was code language for whether or not Devontae Smith could be an X receiver on the Eagles. But I thought it was a very good answer, in which he was able to describe the differences between T.Y. Hilton, Dwayne Bowe, Keenan Allen, and how they're all built differently, but were able to play that position because of their skill set.
Yeah, and the fact that Roseman just said, you take this one. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, that is interesting, and I'll tell you why. Adam and I talk a lot on the podcast about this coaching staff, and at very least, it should be better at developing the wide receiver position than maybe past coaching staffs, because Nick Sirianni is a wide receiver pedigree. Kevin Patullo, the pass game specialist, is a wide receiver convert from quarterback. And obviously the wide receivers coach, Aaron Moorhead, actually played wide receiver not only in college but in the NFL with the Colts for a couple of years. So, I mean, you've got if you look back to last staff and how they were the quarterback cocoon with Reich and with DeFilippo and with Peterson, and that really that did enable development from Carson Wentz. And then, of course, with Nick Foles taking over, you would hope the same thing here with this staff and wide receivers, that their experience and pedigree at that position improves the development at that position.
Let's get a couple quick. We got a lot of questions today, but we had some good back and forth because of this press conference. But a couple draft questions. Jarrett, Geoff Mosher, do you believe the Eagles are seriously considering D-line with their first pick?
I do. I'm not saying I think it's the number one position on their board, but a guy like Kwity Paye really fits what they would do. He's probably the best 4-3 pass rusher. When I say best, maybe safest, because a lot of people like Jalen Phillips, but he had that kind of, I think he's had some concussions, and he had a thing where he left UCLA and gave up football, and then, went to Miami after that. So, like we talked about earlier, when the Eagles are picking in the top 15, go look how many times a defensive lineman has been taken. Yeah. It's been, a lot. Well, so that's a position they value.
Jonathan says all these defensive linemen are projected as prospects. At least one of them would be top 10 if not for COVID. Well, keep in mind, like, Rousseau opted out. Yep. Kwity Paye only played like 4 games this past year. So it's really hard to really analyze this defensive line class.
It really is. And they're all built a little bit differently. Like Azeez Ojulari, I mean, he's a guy who looks like a 3-4 edge rusher because he's only 5'11", but he's got like the wingspan of someone who's 6'4", something like that, something crazy like that. He's got a great wingspan and can play in 4-3 defenses if used correctly. So I think people – they're trying to get to know these prospects as good as possible. They're trying to see as much tape. They're even going back to the year before in some cases. Now, that hurts Kwity Paye, who was stuck behind Rashaan Evans, right, who's now with the Packers. But, you can only work with what you got.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more real fast. Mosher, they said they met with every single player at the Senior Bowl, normally about 15 to 20. How do you read into that? I've had a couple people bring that up today.
Being more thorough, right? Because they acknowledged that the restrictions last year made it difficult. This year they were able to do a little. I think the Senior Bowl was canceled 2 years ago, if I'm not, or maybe it happened before COVID. I don't remember. But the Combine obviously was canceled, so the Senior Bowl was really the best chance this offseason to get a really good look at as many people as you could. So the Eagles sent 10 people down, and they did. They did more interviews. Now, I'm not worried that that's paralysis by analysis. I just feel like that's compensating for what you don't normally get.
It's a lot of rock, paper, scissors games, man.
Oh, man. I wonder if they did an analytical survey on which of the 3 wins more.
Right?
Our chart says if you go with scissors, it's like the Wonderlic thing, man. That's like a 60% win to value right there.
We didn't hear any Wonderlic scores this year.
That's a good point. I don't know if they were administered this year because of the pandemic.
You think Jalen Phillips is there in the second round? That's from Kyle Dubray.
Do I think Jalen Phillips can fall in the second round? There's a chance, Mike. I mean, there's obviously going to be questions about medically from the concussions, I believe it is, and then also, what happened when he gave up football for a year and then transferred. But I will say this. I think, based on my discussions with some scouts and with guys like Greg Cosell, the talent is first-round talent. And not even just first round, but upper first-round talent.
Yeah. Is that an aqua shirt? Adam Kaplan would like to know.
It's an aqua shirt. It is an aqua shirt. No stripes, no checkers. Now, Adam's asking this because people constantly leave messages on our YouTube channel and things about the shirts that I wear because I wear a lot of checkered shirt and striped shirt stuff. So I went with the plain aqua blue today.
That's why when you watch me on this show, I'm always wearing black, man. Oh, I might have something like I got bright blue underneath today, but you got to go with the black on the camera.
Nice and slimming, right?
There we go. All right, Football at 4, the new podcast drops tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Check out all the content at InsideTheBirds.com. Inside the Draft with Greg Cosell is up. The new one falls, Inside the Birds podcast drops tomorrow morning at 6. And, of course, tomorrow, Inside the Birds, Andrew DeCecco will talk more draft. Adam will be here on Friday to give us some insight on everything that's happening. And we'll be 1 week from the draft starting tomorrow.
What's he going to wear? What will Adam be wearing on Friday?
Well, tune in to find out.
I'll have to
Maybe
tune
like
in.
A Tommy Bahama 3-zip.
Adam Reed.
All right, man. Take care.
Have a good one.
Geoff Mosher, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.